Hi, I'm Joe Finsternis, and today I'll be talking to you about a movie called King Kong vs. Godzilla. Now, going into this movie, I'm not gonna lie, I was expecting it to be really boring. You know, regarding the other films in the sort of individual series that this movie was following, I've seen the original King Kong as well as the Peter Jackson movie, and I love both of them. And I've also seen the original Japanese cut of Gojira, as well as that movie with Matthew Broderick, and I loved Gojira quite a bit. But, outside of that, this was a Japanese-made giant monster movie, and aside from Gojira, the only other one that I had seen before this was X from Outer Space, which was about this giant sort of chicken-looking alien attacking Japan, and it sounds a lot more hilarious than it actually is, but it was super slow and boring, and it almost put me asleep. So I was kind of expecting that from this movie going in, but as it turns out, this movie is a lot of fun. It's not good, but it's fun. So I'm going to try to describe the plot of the film to the best of my ability. A submarine crashes into the iceberg that Godzilla is trapped in. Godzilla is free, and he wreaks havoc on Tokyo because that's what he does. Pretty much it for the Godzilla story. When you see him and King Kong, they both look like men in rubber suits. And there's a bit where these tanks are coming after Godzilla, and they look like toys. But I didn't really mind how fake everything looked. It was sort of charming, and it added to the sort of B-movie hilarity that the film had going for it. On the other hand, though, there were these shots of a giant station in outer space, which I guess was supposed to be some kind of news station, and that effect looked really good for the time. I suspect that they must have put all of their money into that, then gave someone $10 to do the Godzilla and King Kong suits, and then went to the toy store to buy some tanks. So, anyway, the storyline with King Kong is just a little more detailed. There's a TV show that's getting low ratings, and the producer wants to spice things up. So he hears about these berries on Skull Island, which are roughly the size of tomatoes. And I don't actually recall whether they said Skull Island or not in this movie, but that's what I'm going to call it. Anyway, and this gorilla on the island ate the berries, and somehow they made him gigantic, and now the natives sort of worship him as a god. Apparently King Kong needed an origin story in this. I believe it. Anyway, so the producer sends a couple of explorers to the island to capture the ape and bring him back to be featured on the TV show. And when they get there, I don't know how many of you out there have seen the original King Kong, but in that movie they at least had the decency to cast actual black people as the Skull Island natives. In this film, when you see the natives, they are all Asian with brown makeup on their faces. Also, when the explorers meet the chief for the first time, one of them raises his hand up and says, "How?" So there's a lot of confusion there. At the same time, though, I definitely get the impression that the campiness was intentional in the film. It felt like the creators of the movie were not taking the material very seriously. I mean, to make friends with the tribes people, these explorers start handing out cigarettes to everyone, and then this little native boy is raising his arms up, to show that he wants one, and the explorers sort of look at each other, and one of them says, "We forgot to bring candy." Oh well. And they give him a couple of cigarettes too. So, yeah, they They watch as King Kong drinks some berry juice and then passes out from it because I guess it has some sort of narcotic effect as well. And they bring him back to Japan on a raft. Things start to go wrong though. King Kong wakes up on the raft and they try blowing him up with dynamite and it doesn't work and he swims to the shore. And for some reason, somehow, he senses Godzilla's presence and sees Godzilla as a natural enemy, and he must find him and duel with him, because I guess this wouldn't be King Kong versus Godzilla if that didn't happen. There's really not much explanation behind it, but they pretty much say that in the movie, you know. King Kong senses the giant lizard's presence and he has to defeat him. And as for the actual fight scenes, they sort of start out underwhelming. You know, King Kong picks up a bunch of giant rocks and throws them at Godzilla. Godzilla breathes fire or whatever you want to call that stuff. And at one point he knocks King Kong down, turns around and starts beating him with his tail over and over and over again. But after that, it started to lighten up a bit. I guess that, you know, while they were filming it, they looked back at the footage and said, wow, this sucks. We really need to step it up. And I'm not going to spoil much here, but there's one point where King Kong picks up a tree and throws it into Godzilla's mouth. And then Godzilla breathes his fire breath, of course, catches the tree aflame and spits it out at King Kong, which hits him in the chest. So that was kind of awesome, even with the $10 special effects that they were using. Also, somehow, even though electricity is a known weakness of Godzilla, for some reason it doesn't affect King Kong. And my memory's a little sketchy here, but I think they even said at one point that it makes him stronger. Yeah, about as much explanation as the whole natural rivalry thing. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about the movie. You know, if you're into cheesy giant monster movies and you haven't seen this one, I don't know why you're wasting your time. You need to get on that right now because it's hilarious and awesome. Anyway, that's it for my review, guys. I hope you have a good one.